YouTube, what is up? It is Atticus. It's been a minute. How's everybody doing? Hope you're well. I'm back with you for another Dark Elf game, my friends. So yeah, we are trying good old Volkmar Hellabron. I actually read her book in the Dark Elves Omnibus, and she has such a cool story. Like her and her sister, how they got lured into the cult of Cain, and pretty much how she rose up through the ranks of just being like a helper to one of the chieftains to becoming like a second to Marathi. She's just a very fascinating character. I strongly recommend the books for any of you guys who haven't read it. And yeah, the Dark Elf Omnibus, I'll show you what it looks like in my next video. So today we are fighting the Empire. And yeah, this one's a cool one on a cool map, and you can see my opponent's going to make really good usage of the water here to try to slow down. So I'm just going to jump into the builds, and then we'll talk a little bit about the strategy. So yeah, for the Lord guys, obviously we have Volkmar Hellabron. I love her in the Empire matchup. I think it's one of her strongest matchups. Then probably Empire, Greenskins, and maybe Skaven, depending on what Skaven brings. She could be really good, but you know, her access to terror on the altar or on the Manticore. Also, she has like a mortis engine effect. When she lands on things, she'll start taking down their life. So it's really good at like globbed up units and things like that. Running with her, I have a secondary Manticore, which is a really cheap way of causing terror and routing front lines. For my infantry contingent guys, we have a little bit of everything. So we got some bleak swords, we got the blades of the Blood Queen, which yeah, these guys will have the guardian trait, which will come in a lot of handy when what's her name, Hellabron lands. Also, we have a bolt thrower here to try to snipe at some artillery. And yeah, guys, we are trying some shades this game, so this will be really good against my opponent's Lord and any Cav and units like that. And they're going to be hidden, so my opponent won't know that I have them. So yeah, we got a couple of Dread Spears to pad out the numbers. And then yeah, we got the Raven Heralds, guys. One of my favorite units in the game. These guys are just so cool. I thought it was really neat of CA to make a different Regent of Renown unit that doesn't really exist in the lore. They kind of just made these guys up. And yeah, they're really, really good. And a lot of times people don't expect them. So I'm really glad they got a price reduction. In my Vanguard, guys, I was trying to do some sneaky attacks, trying to do some Skaven. We had the Sinicious Harvesters, and we have a unit of Dark Riders right here. So these guys obviously have Bound spells. They'll have Soul Stealer and Word of Pain, which will help them win a Cav engagement. And I put them in front of a Dark Rider because the idea is that Dark Riders will take the initial charge, and the Sinicious Harvesters will do the damage. And also, last but not least, guys, we have a unit of Harpies. So that's my build. For the Empire player, you can see that he's set up here in the water, like I said. So that's going to make my units fight a lot slower. They're going to be at a penalty. And if he's playing really defensive, well then yeah, it kind of benefits him. So for his Lord guys, I do believe we have Volkmar the Grim. So you don't really see him a lot. See if he took all his abilities. So yeah, he has Faith of Sigmar, the magic damage thing, the shield reduction or damage reduction, and then the area of effect bombardment spell. For a front line, my opponent does have a whole bunch of flagellants. So yeah, these guys are unbreakable. They'll fight to the very last. Against like Blades of the Blood Queen and things like that, they'll get absolutely shredded. But against Bleak Swords and Dread Spears, yeah, these guys are a pretty good counter to it. I like to mix these guys in with what my opponent did right here, some Great Swords. So yeah, have these guys fighting, doing some damage. Great Swords will come behind and do the armor piercing. So yeah, really powerful front line. You can see that he has a pretty powerful artillery contingent. He has a mortar unit, which will be really good on this map since I'm going to be going over this nice long marsh right here, or this swamp right here, which is going to slow me, which means he'll hit me a lot with artillery, and a great cannon. So also 2 units of great swords, it looks like, yep, and then a whole bunch of sorry, my phone's going off there. And then a whole bunch of crossbowmen. So yeah, really taking advantage of playing defensive inside a marsh. So I really like this. A couple spears here to protect from Cav. And we have looks like a fire sorcerer. Yeah, bright sorcerer. Burning head, the vortex spell, flaming sword of ruin, and piercing bolt. So well, it looks like he brought everything. So I guess he just wanted to have a little bit of versatility on his spells. But I think you should only take a maximum of 3. Otherwise, you're just kind of wasting your winds of magic. But maybe he just wanted to have the options available, you know, whatever happens. So let's go ahead and start this, guys. So right off the bat, as Arya said to the Night King, if anybody knows anything about anything, isn't that a bunch of BS? Yeah, it kind of is. So yeah, guys, we're going to obviously start moving up here. You can see the Raven Heralds are trying to dodge some of the mortars that are getting shot in on them. And yeah, we're just trying to stay outside the range of the cannon, guys. You can see that my Vanguard trick right here in the woods, I thought my opponent would, you know, deploy right here, but since he's all the way on the other side, he's going to see my ambush coming, ideally, or at least he should. You can see, I have another unit of Dark Riders I forgot to mention too, that we're kind of running with my army to protect against any pistoliers and things like that. You can see his artillery is opening up, and yeah, we're taking a lot of damage. I mean, as to be expected, but it is on my low tier units. If he wants to hit the bleak swords and things like that, that's okay. These are the guys I don't want getting hit. As you can see, a cannon comes right into their face, so that must be so disheartening. Running, charging the Empire and just getting all that artillery in the face. You don't know which cannon's going to hit you. You're one of these guys right here, and then all of a sudden, boom. Over here, guys, you can see the Raven Heralds are going to catch his Demigryphs out of position. And look how much damage those Raven Heralds do to those Demigryphs, guys. They're such a good counter to Cav. And I forgot to mention he did have some Demigryphs, so I was going to keep my cavalry honest. But the idea is to soften them up with these guys and then use the Sineshi Harvesters with Word of Pain to pretty much neuter these guys. You can see my opponent is trying to get some crossbowmen here to try to screen out the Raven Heralds, but I'm being really safe with them. They are glass cannons, so you have to keep them outside of range. You can see the Bolt Thrower is going to start opening them up, guys, and we're going to start automatically shooting at the cannon. And yeah, the Bolt Thrower is a natural counter to artillery. You'll be able to shut it down pretty quickly. You can see this Bleak Swords right here have been absolutely just shredded by that mortar. Blades of the Blood Queen are in relatively good health, though. But yeah, guys, we're now in the range of the crossbowmen, and you can see that we are going to start opening up here. I am going to send everything into these Demigryphs. So yeah, I'm going to use the Word of Pain right here. It's going to knock them their immediate attack, and we have the Overwatch of the Raven Heralds, and we'll be absolutely able to shred through those Demigryphs. Front lines are getting ready to collide, guys. We got some Bleak Swords getting ready to hit. We have some Dread Spears coming around the side. You can see the Harpies are going to go into the middle. And yeah, we're just going to try to shut down these crossbowmen. You see my opponent is going to get Flaming Sword of Ruin, which is going to give magic damage to his crossbowmen, and yeah, I guess it's I guess it gives them more weapon strength and things like that. But interesting spell usage. You can see I'm going to get my other secondary Dark Riders, though. We're going to get right into that mortar piece, so yeah, it's going to be really good. We're going to shut it down, and you can see, guys, he does break one of my Bleak Swords, but the Dread Spears are still fighting, and things are looking pretty good for us. You can see we have shut down the cannons, though, between the Bolt Thrower and the Harpies and pretty much everything. We've just shut down all his artillery, and it's looking really good for us. You can see that Hellabron is going to land with the Blades of the Blood Queen. I'm going to get the Gaze of Cain off, which is going to give me a nice, good damage boost for my army. You can see that Volkmar is going to start fighting amongst Hellabron, but she has really good armor piercing, so I'm not too concerned about it. Over here, guys, you can see the Raven Heralds are starting to shoot into these Great Swords, who were trying to chase some of my Cav, and yeah, we're pretty much just rampaging all through his back line. You can see the Sineshi Harvester has gotten to the crossbowmen, the Manticore is dealing with his artillery pieces, and yeah, we just have, fights going on all across the map. You can see, though, that Volkmar was putting a spanking onto Hellabron, which I did not expect, and it's forcing me to have to pull away with all his buffs. And you can see that these flagellants are fighting to the bitter end. It is holding some of my more powerful units up, but how we're winning is just all the backline harass. We're shutting down all his ranged units, which is like textbook how you play the Dark Elves. You harass the backline. That is, if you watch my Dark Elf guide, you know how important that is. You can see we are getting into the Bright Wizard. We are going to be able to break him, and we're going to get a nice juicy charge into these flagellants right here. But without all the support of his range units and his artillery, it's not looking too good for my opponent. You can see balance power is pretty strongly in my favor. I am going to send Hellabron into these crossbowmen. I did want to pull him away from Volkmar, because Volkmar was surprisingly doing a lot of damage, and you can see he is fighting amongst these Dark Riders. We're pretty much just trying to hold him up. But yeah, guys, the Shades now will be able to start shooting into him, and that's going to melt him really quickly. And you can see, guys, yeah, all across the map right here, we're just rampaging. You can see the Manticore fighting amongst these Great Swords. He will cause terror. You can see Hellabron's going to come in for another rear charge too, and we pretty much just had the Manticore gangbang. At this point, my opponent does have a few crossbowmen and a few spears here who's trying to do a little bit of damage. Same with these spears right here, but the problem is just, yeah, I'm just everywhere. I have so much mobility. I'm able just to kind of ping pong across his defenses. What he uses as a defense fighting in these swamps is kind of backfiring him now, because he can't reinforce, individual battles. You can see I'm going to get another Gaze of Cain off right here, guys, into these Great Swords, and yeah, it's looking really good for the Druchii. You can see Hellabron is landing again, trying to get that cycle charging in. Over here, Volkmar is fighting into my Shades. He is going to get his bombardment spell off, and yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate. You can see I'm going to send a few Bleak Swords in to try to buy those guys time, but yeah, I figured if he wants to get my Shades, well, then we'll just take out the rest of his army. And you You can see I'm trying to escort off some units with my extra Manticore. And yeah, over here we got the Raven Heralds who've used their ammunition are going to land into these crossbowmen. We got the Dread Spears over here fighting amongst the Spearmen. And yeah, it's just a big battle everywhere. You can see there was a Fireball spell that my opponent passed by the Bright Wizard. I kind of missed it, but yeah. You can see the Bolt Thrower is going to start shooting at Volkmar. And yeah, he's going to get another Grand Hammer of Sigmar. He's going to get his Battle Prayer. And he's just doing everything he can. And it's actually working. You can see he is, breaking these big swords. And he's going to maybe win that one line. But look, his whole back line is pretty much just destroyed. You can see we are just going to collapse onto his remaining units. And that is going to be army losses for the Empire man. So a win for the Druchii. So that is textbook how you deal with Empire. Pretty much how you deal with any army is the Dark Elves, guys. Harass the back line. I mean, the most powerful thing the Dark Elves have is harassing that back line. And, so many options between Harpies, Dark Riders, Sineshi Harvesters, Manticores, Cold One Knights. You just have so many tools that make it so powerful. And some armies like Dwarves, Empire, Skaven, Like, once you shut down their supporting units, they're just not going to stand a chance. You can see that these flagellants are fighting to the bitter end, and that should be, games. So let's go ahead and look at the in-screen breakdown, guys, and talk about some of the keys for my success. And, my opponent did have a good army. He had a good defensive position, but, I think where he kind of went wrong is, look, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units that can't really protect themselves. So you're going to be, dependent on units to protect them. Well, if you only have one unit of Demigryphs, what happens when he's, dueling another Cav? And then I have, let's just say this Demigryph fights the Sineshi Harvesters. Well, I still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units that can still harass the back line. You get what I'm saying? So the point is, if you're going to go really powerful missile core, artillery core, maybe bring some Empire Knights. Maybe bring some units in the back to protect it, because you just got to expect that's how the Dark Elves are going to beat you. And once they harass that back line, they're just going to stampede through your front line. So, Hellabron did good. Her Gaze of Cain buff really helped. I was surprised, though. She was losing one-on-one against Volkmar with all his buffs, so that was a little bit surprising. The Shades were able to do some Lord sniping. Obviously, the Sineshi Harvesters and the Raven Heralds have a really good synergy. And, yeah, the build went pretty good, guys. So, all right, well, good game to Fazio98. This is Atticus, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Have a good night.